It was supposed to be just another delivery route for Mark, a longtime USPS driver who knew every street, every porch, and every neighbor by name. That afternoon, the sun was beating down as he made his usual rounds through a quiet suburban neighborhood. But when he walked up to one front step with a small brown box in hand, something stopped him cold. Taped to the top of the package was a handwritten note. At first, he thought it might be a delivery request, but what it said made his stomach drop. It was short. Just a few shaky words scrawled in pencil. Asterisk, please help. He won't let me leave. Asterisk. Mark froze. He looked around. Everything seemed normal: birds chirping, a lawn sprinkler ticking back and forth, a dog barking faintly in the distance. But something about that note screamed urgency. His instincts told him this wasn't a prank. Someone inside that house might be in real danger. He didn't know who had written it or how they'd managed to get it onto the package, but he knew one thing: he couldn't ignore it. Every second mattered. What Mark did next would set off a chain of events no one saw coming. He hadn't signed up to be a hero. But sometimes the uniform doesn't just deliver mail. It delivers justice. And what happened after he made that call shocked everyone, including Mark himself, because hidden behind that door wasn't just a cry for help. It was a secret no. One was supposed to find. Mark took a careful step back from the porch, his mind racing. He'd delivered to that house dozens of times. The man who lived there, Mr. Harlan, was quiet, always polite, maybe a little cold, but nothing that ever raised concern. He lived alone, or so everyone thought. No one had ever seen anyone else enter or leave the house. No visitors, no family. Just the occasional package or letter with no return address. Mark kept his eyes on the front door, half expecting it to swing open. But it stayed shut. He slowly walked back to his truck, keeping the box in hand. He needed to report this, but he also knew the note could disappear before help arrived. Carefully, he took a photo of it with his phone, his hands slightly trembling. This wasn't the kind of thing they trained him for at orientation. Still parked down the block, Mark stayed in his truck and called the non-emergency police line. He explained what he found, what the note said, and how something just felt wrong. The dispatcher promised to send someone to check it out. But minutes felt like hours. As he waited, Mark scanned his delivery log. That same house had received packages regularly for months, but never with any name listed other than H. Harlan. He started to wonder. What if someone had been living inside all this time, completely hidden? Suddenly, the blinds in the front window shifted just an inch. Someone was watching him. Mark's eyes narrowed as he watched the blinds settle back into place. Someone was definitely inside, and they knew he'd seen the note. He felt a chill, despite the summer heat. He looked at the box again. No unusual weight, no strange markings, just that quiet cry for help scrawled in desperation. Whoever wrote it had one chance to get it out, and Mark had happened to be the right person at the right time as he waited. For the police, a thought gnawed at him. What if the person inside didn't have time? What if the moment he drove off, things got worse? Mark checked his watch. 13 minutes had passed since he made the call. Too long. Meanwhile, across the street, a neighbor had stepped out to water her plants. Mrs. Langston, retired schoolteacher, gave Mark a small wave. He jogged over and asked quietly, "Have you noticed anything strange at Harlan's place lately?" She looked toward the house, lowering her watering can. "Now that you mention it, I thought I saw a young woman in the upstairs window last week. Just for a second, but I told myself I was imagining it." That small confirmation tightened the knot in Mark's chest. So he wasn't just being paranoid. Someone else had seen something too. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was the dispatcher. "Units are en route. Stay in your vehicle and don't approach the house." But before he could answer, the front door creaked open, just slightly. Enough to send his heart pounding again. Mark froze. The front door of the house stood barely ajar, swaying slightly in the breeze. He couldn't see inside, just a shadow, long and unmoving, cast across the threshold. He stayed by his truck, torn between following the dispatcher's instructions and the growing fear that whoever wrote that note might be in immediate danger. He glanced at the driveway. Mr. Harlan's car was there, parked like usual. No movement. No sound, but Mark's gut told him something inside that house had shifted. Someone knew the secret was out. Across the street, Mrs. Langston noticed the open door too. "Is everything all right?" She called out softly, but Mark shook his head. Finger pressed to his lips. "Stay back," he mouthed. She nodded, retreating inside with her phone in hand. The neighborhood felt quieter than usual. Like the street itself was holding its breath. Inside the truck, Mark zoomed in on the photo of the note again. He hadn't noticed it before, but something was scribbled faintly at the bottom corner, initials, maybe? Or a number. It looked like RM2, a room, a floor. It wasn't much, but it felt like a clue. Then a new sound, a soft, dragging scrape came from the other side of the porch. Mark's eyes locked on the gap in the doorway. A bare hand, small and pale, slowly reached out and placed something. On the step, a second note, folded once, and then, just as quickly, the hand disappeared. Mark stepped forward cautiously, heart pounding, eyes darting between the doorway and the street. The second note sat quietly on the step, like it had been waiting for him. He glanced up the road, still no sign of the police. The neighborhood was still, too still. He bent down, snatched the note, and stepped back fast. This one was folded tighter, like someone had written it in a rush. He unfolded it and read the shaky words. Asterisk, there's more than one of us. He's leaving tonight. Please hurry. Asterisk. Mark's stomach dropped. More than one. That changed everything. This wasn't just one person. Trapped it was possibly two. Maybe more. The initials on the first note, RM2, suddenly made more sense. Rooms, numbers, maybe even a basement. This wasn't just a cry for help. It was a full-blown situation waiting to explode just then. Movement flickered in the upstairs window. A figure. This time not just watching, but pacing. It was quick, too quick to make out clearly, but enough to confirm that someone else was inside. Someone scared. Then the sound of tires. Not from the police, but from the alley behind the house. Mark stepped around the back of his truck and caught sight of a dark green van pulling up quietly. Its lights off. It parked in the narrow space behind the house, out of street view. Mark quickly ducked behind the mailbox, clutching the second note. That van hadn't come for a delivery. It came to clean up. Mark stayed low, watching as a tall man stepped out of the van and headed straight for the back entrance of the house. He wore gloves and carried nothing, but his pace was fast, and his eyes scanned everything. This wasn't Mr. Harlan. This man moved with purpose, like he had done this before. Mark knew he had seconds, maybe less. He pulled out his phone and sent the second note's photo to the dispatcher with a single message. Asterisk, more victims. Someone just entered through the back. Hurry, asterisk, as he hit send. Flashing lights turned the corner. Sirens stayed off, but 3 cruisers glided in fast, blocking both ends of the street. Officers poured out, weapons drawn, moving in formation toward the house. The tall man at the back door heard the commotion and turned, but it was too late. Officers tackled him to the ground before he could vanish back into the alley. At the front, another team burst through the door. Shouts echoed, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps inside. Then silence. A moment later, 2 teenage girls were escorted out, wide-eyed and trembling. One of them looked directly at Mark and whispered, you saw the note." He nodded, unsure what to say. Just as he turned to leave, an officer approached. Holding a third folded note they found inside this one, not written by a victim. It simply read, "Asterisk, we saw you watching. This isn't over." Asterisk Mark's blood ran cold. This went deeper than anyone thought. Mark sat quietly on the back bumper of his mail truck, watching as the last of the flashing lights faded down the street. The girls were safe. Officers had secured the home, and the man from the van was taken into custody. Mr. Harlan had vanished just hours earlier, likely tipped off, but they had enough now to start tracking the full network behind the scenes. What started as a normal USPS route turned into a case that unraveled something much bigger than anyone imagined. The neighborhood stayed quiet in the days that followed. But news spread quickly. People praised Mark's quick thinking, his decision not to look the other way. Headlines called him a hero USPS driver, and the photos of the notes went viral, triggering tips from other towns with similar stories. Law enforcement confirmed the operation had links to other cities, and the warning found in that third note proved one thing: this was far from over. Mark returned to his route the next week. Some porches had balloons and thank you signs. Others left bottled water and snacks. But he didn't do it for recognition. He did it because someone needed help, and he was there to see it. He still thinks about the message, "We saw you watching." It stuck with him not as a threat, but as a reminder. You never know when something small, like a handwritten note on a package, might be someone's only way out.